Hi, in today's video in Procreate Dreams, I want to talk about eases in animation. Let's start with this video. At the top you see linear eases or linear keying or animation, and you see it just goes really flat, even, no dynamic. Then the next one you see the ease in, you easing into the action, and then the third you're easing out of the action. Then the last option, the ease in and out, and these are the typical eases that are available in any animation or advanced animation software. Now, these are specifically illustrating the automatic easing that we apply to certain animation keys. But when it's hand-drawn animation, we have to mimic that manually. We have to draw that. And honestly, that's the fun part of it. But to keep this video simplified and to just focus on the eases, the concept of eases, I have here this example of an orange slice falling into the water. What I want to do here is to give you an idea of how we can dynamically, by simply changing the placement of a key, we make a world of a difference. Let's talk about the timeline in Procreate Dreams. Something that I would like to clarify. With 3 fingers, if you tap on the layers, you click and then you push up, you start to see the thumbnail of that layer you're working on, which makes it really a useful method of really viewing your timeline. And it looks cool too. Here is the lemon slice, and I'm just gonna start the animation over. Before I make the movement, I place it exactly where I want it to be. And something that I want to clarify is that when you are on the compose, which is the default, the compose would allow you to move the object and place it wherever you want, and it does not affect the movement or the animation. However, when you click on the keyframe, now you're actually keying those movements. So it's really good to know the difference between the two. So how do I start the animation? Now that I placed the orange slice where I want it to be, I'm gonna click on the keyframe. As of now, there's nothing being recorded until I go here and tap and then click on the move and then move and scale, and now you see that dark gray track. I think they could color this slightly differently just for visibility. It's a little difficult to see. Now I have a key, and if I move the timeline, you can see that key right there. Okay, one thing I would like to highlight is that you need to get familiar with the idea that Procreate Dreams makes a difference or functions differently with clicking and holding a key with or without the timeline on it. Meaning, if I recorded or clicked or saved a key and move the timeline away, if I want to change the placement of that key, I cannot do that with the timeline trigger on it. I have to move the timeline trigger, then I can click and hold, and only then can I actually move that key. Something that will be important to know in the near future. Now, with that said, I placed the slice in on the position where I wanted to start the movement, and then I'll go all the way till the very end, and then I'm going to move it down. Simple as that. Of course, any movement I make, it gets recorded automatically as long as I am on the keyframe. Now when I hit play, look at that amazing animation. Wonderful. So mesmerizing, right? I'm sure you're just floored by now. Okay, so what I want to do now, as I mentioned previously, I want to demonstrate that dynamic change of the placement of keyframes, which makes a world of a difference. Meaning, this is something that I really wish I knew when I was learning animation in the beginning, ages ago. However you move the timeline, you can pick an action, right? Here's the timing. By zooming in, this is where the slice is now diving, starting to dive into the water. I can even say maybe this would be a good position there. Now that the slice is diving through the water, if I go and click tap, what does that mean? It means that I have just saved a key that records that action at that specific time. It's a very simple concept, but soon it starts to get a little complicated. Think about it this way. This is your timeline and this is you owning your first car maybe. And then you think, it would be nice if I click that key and make that a lot earlier in my life, then everything else would change drastically. Or you can think of it your first computer. Now that I recorded that specific action, I want to move the timeline away just so I can click and hold that key, and I want to speed up that process to make this action happen earlier. Why am I doing this? Because as you can see, the movement is flat, even. It feels the same before and after. And what I want to do or achieve in this video, hopefully, is to demonstrate how I can make the movement feel different right after the impact with the water. What I want to do technically is to make the time it takes this slice to feel slower, just diving into the water. I want it to go slower. So I click and hold on that key and make it happen faster, and therefore giving more time here to take place. And let's see how that feels. What I can also now do is repeat the very same process, applying here. So right now, between this key and this key, the orange is diving. And what I would like to do is to record that action here and push it back, because what I'd like to do is to give it that graceful landing, potentially. Meaning, I want just that last bit to really feel eased. So what I can do is I'm gonna select a key right here, click, then move the timeline and then click and hold, and there. Let's see what we have right now. Now you can fine-tune that by clicking on that key and make the first movement more aggressive. See that? Just by adding more aggression here, by giving it technically less keyframes or less frames, and giving this more frames, so we can give the last teeny tiny bit a lot more frames. Now let's try to mimic the same process. I'm gonna click and hold on this key and drag it and giving that last bit even more time. And as you can see, it feels like it's just hitting the brake. Doesn't really feel right. Now this is where, if you're hand drawing the animation, you would be a lot more in control. But that's okay. This video is just about really describing and demonstrating the general principle of easing. Now what I want to experiment with is how can I mitigate that feeling of it hitting the brake, simply by dragging this and giving it more time. And then I can also dynamically click here and record an action, and then giving it more time, leaving this area here at the last bit right there to have more time. And if you want to do that effect of ever so slightly, then I'm gonna go to the frame before the last. The frame before the last. Tap. And then click and hold that specific frame. And cushion that. Let's see if that's gonna work. And if you wanna really push it further, let's see, I'm gonna click on that frame. Actually, let me just expand this layer of that orange slice, only for the sake of dragging this much further. And let's see what result I'm gonna end with. It might be a little too dramatic, but I'm all for experimenting. So let's see what we get. It wasn't that much because it was very tiny movement. So maybe I can just do it this way. Yeah, let's see that. Maybe the part here hits a little hard. So maybe if I were to push this more and push this a little bit more. See that? And by now, hopefully you have learned how simply recording an action in a specific time and reallocating it almost gives you that butterfly effect, if you've seen the movie or if you heard the theory, where little change sometimes could make drastic influence or impact. Alright, with that said, I hope this video was helpful, and thank you.